February 22nd started off just like every other day. I woke up, I made my lunch, I got ready for work. Nothing out of the ordinary. It wasn't until I checked my phone. Once I looked at my phone, I found out that my life was going to be different from here on out. Because on February 22nd, I found out that I won. And now I want a backyard roller coaster.
Now get ready. Here we go.
Welcome to the Ryan Ride Mechanic channel. How the heck are you doing today? Alright, today's video is more of a story. Have you ever thought about what you would do if you can get a backyard roller coaster? I got asked that exact same question. What would you do if you can get a backyard roller coaster? And I started to think about it. Well, in this case, I won the lotto. Not just won the lotto a little bit, I won the lotto a lot. A total jackpot of $678 million take home. That's one of the biggest jackpots in history. Pretty cool, right? So I won that, and I told myself, he said, you know what? I'm going to get a roller coaster for the backyard. That's what I'm going to do. I told my wife, I said, honey, I'm going to get a roller coaster for the backyard. And then after asking her nicely a couple more times, she finally agreed to it. So where do I start in the process? Well, I looked at models that were already existing out there because with my history, I know that it's much more economical to buy a model that already exists. So I said, you know what? I'm going to call up Intamin and see if they can make me a carbon copy of Maverick. Like, that's what I want. That's my backyard roller coaster. A lot of people are talking about screwing pipes and wood and stuff together in the backyard. It's like, I want a copy of Maverick, and I want to be able to put it out at my own place. That's what I want to do. So I called up Intamin, and I said, hey, I want to get a copy of Maverick. How much does it cost for that? Well, they gave me a very round ballpark estimate of, it depends on your project, your length, the terms, all the other stuff. So a little while later, I waited for my funds to come in. Now, from the lottery, I had accepted cash value. So I waited for the cash to come in, and I already having all these investors and everybody starting to put money places, and I said, hold up, I need some money for a roller coaster. So I took a certain area of my account and I sent part of that information to them where they could see the balance was over $10 million. That way they knew I was serious about it, because otherwise they wouldn't even give me the time of day, right? So I sent them that, and I said, all right, let's talk about a project. And they were very eager to discuss a project with me. So I'm like, okay, here's what I want to do. I want basically a carbon copy of the Maverick ride out at Cedar Point, but I want to put it on my own land, and I want to operate it by myself. And they said, what do you mean by yourself? And I said, well, I didn't want to have a crew of people there to operate the ride. I just wanted to be able to go to my land, turn the ride on, get on, and dispatch. So they said, well, how would you dispatch the ride if nobody's there? And I said, I have it worked out. Basically, right next to the track, I'm going to put a operator panel, and we're going to put 2 dispatch buttons, or like a double action button sitting there, one where you have to pull the outside, push the inside. And then once it does that, we'll set a timer and it'll signal for 10 seconds. And then after that 10 seconds, the train will dispatch. And they said, you can't do that. It's not safe to operate a ride like that. I'm like, but it's my own property. The land is closed. Nobody else will be there. And they're like, there's all sorts of circumstances there where you could run into a fire. There could be a problem. There's all sorts of things. And I said, well, I'm paying for it. This is what I want. And they said, no way. We're not going to sell you a coaster to be operated in that fashion because it's just not safe. So I thought about it for a long time. I'm like, well, what else could I do? I could go to Vacoma, I could do something else like that, but I thought, you know what? It's going to be the same thing everywhere. Basically, the manufacturer, to some extent, is still going to be held liable for that attraction no matter what, even if I bought a used one from a park. The manufacturer is still going to be held liable. So in this case, the manufacturer's fundamental problem is just saying that they don't want me operating the ride by myself. I said, okay. All right, so I went back to him and said, okay, here's what I do. We'll install it per the full ASTM standard. We'll do everything properly. We'll have it commissioned and all that stuff. And I'll get a bunch of my buddies together and we will train as an operational crew. But I want to be able to run the ride with a total of 3 people only. Like, I prefer 2 if you can make it 2, but if I need 3, I'll do 3. They said they could do 2. So it's like, awesome. All right. So what do we need to get the ball rolling? And we started talking about designs and specs and things. They started saying some areas where the original concept wasn't quite great in some areas because they said we were running into power conditioning problems and we had some drive issues going through here, but it's a much later revision ride, so it should be better off for me now. Getting really excited about this. I'm like, okay, how much land does this need to sit on? And they're like, this would need to sit on roughly 8 acres of land. It's like, all right, if I were to get that land in a square, could we set the ride down on there? And they said, no, not in a square. In a square, you need more like 10 or 12 acres of land. It's like, okay, 12 acres of land I could probably easily do. I live out here in Nebraska, so there should be easily 12 to 20 acres of land that I can easily plop this coaster down on. And I started looking out on the internet and I'm like, what's out there? It's like, oh yeah, 20 acres, 30 acres, 50 acres, 100. There's all sorts of stuff out there. This is going to be easy. It wasn't that bad too, price-wise. It wasn't that bad. It was under $100,000 for like 20 acres of land, which is what I was looking at. So it's like, okay, cool. I got that, and I'm like, what do I need to do? It's like, well, I need to go to the state and purchase that. Well, let's see, actually, how tall is that ride? Oh, it's about 100 feet high. Doesn't look that high, but it's 100 feet high. Is there a height limit out there? So let's see, I search out there and I go, well, yeah, there is. There is actually a height limit. It's 50 feet. Well, I don't want to have them take it down by 50 feet. It's already low enough as it is. Not that I need a super high ride. So I go back and I hire myself some lawyers to look into what I need to do to obtain land. All right, so this legal team is looking over my land purchases. I have another legal team that is in charge of dealing with Intamin because there is a lot of legal process. They are doing their own business over there. I'm having to do my own business over here. And the 2 sets of lawyers have to talk to each other and make sure that the legal responsibility is being transferred properly between the seller and the purchaser, basically. So it's like, okay, they're doing that. I get my other lawyers and I say, hey, I need to get 20 acres of land, but I want to do it in such a way where they're like, what do you need this land for? I'm like, here's what I'm doing. I'm going to put a roller coaster on it. And they said, so you need to operate an amusement park. I said, no, I am not going to be open to the public at all. I am literally just going to build this roller coaster, and that is it. I am going to ride it in private.
That's what she said.
It's going to be my own land. I'm going to just have a couple people. We're going to operate it, and that's the end of it. The story's done. And the lawyers said, okay, well, let's look at that. So the problem was the height. In order to put up something over that 50 feet tall, I had to create a business entity, and then I had to prove a case to the state that I wanted to put a structure on there up to a certain height. And they said, what height do you want to name on there? I'm like, you know what? I don't want to cap myself out at 100 feet. And I don't want to be buried with like, oh, you know, you said 100, but it's 102 feet or something like that. Been bitten by that one before, right? So I was like, 300 foot. I want a 300 foot height limit in there. I want to put structures up there up to 300 feet. Well, it took some time to do, basically. They're like, you know what, this is going to have to go through the city planning, all the financials and everything else, and then you're going to have to petition, and it's going to take court hearings to actually zone the land for what you want it to use. So that initial property you're looking at might not be the one you get, because we have to be able to zone it properly for putting a 300-foot structure on top of there. So I was like, okay, let's start that process. So we started doing that process. Now, in the meantime, I started talking with Intamin, and I'm like, all the design specs, everything was coming out. My team of lawyers over there was getting the turnover information, and I needed to hire an engineering company now. Why would you need to hire an engineering company? Because I need to install the roller coaster. The roller coaster has to be installed to a certain standard so it doesn't just come apart. So I need an engineering company to go out and survey the land and mark out all the footers where they're going to go, and then they have to do core sampling all over the property to make sure the land is going to be okay to put the ride on top of. We want to make sure the land doesn't move a bunch. It's like, yeah, okay. So I hire an engineering company. They go out to, we've now nailed down the plot of land that we're going to do. We're about 6 months into the land process here. We've nailed down that plot of land, and we said, okay, this is what we want to use. They go out and they do core sampling. Now, Intamin hasn't officially started the project yet because they said they can do it fast. Fast project is 18 months. They said in 18 months they can get this project done, which is okay because the lawyers are telling me it's going to take at least 14 months just to clear up the land that it's going to sit on. In the meantime, I'm having to pay out extra money to do this core sampling and stuff because the land that I want to buy, I've told the people that I want to buy this land, but it's not mine yet. We haven't changed hands, but now I want to send surveyor crews to the land to do core sampling because it hasn't been purchased yet. So I'm like, all right, go there. They do the core sampling. They come back and they said, yep. Intamin said, yes, okay, we need these size piers. They have to go into the ground. All this information. It's like, great. It takes a lot of power to run that ride. Where's the nearest power? It's like, well, that's a good question. Can we run it off of generators? And they said, are you shitting me? Generators? No, you can't run it off of generators. I'm like, okay, well, I just thought I'd ask. All right, let me call up my local power utility, and I got the specs from Intamin, what the ride needs power consumption wise, and I called up the local power utility, and I told them what the ride needs and where the plot of land was that I was planning on going, and they said, are you shitting me? That's out in the middle of nowhere. That's the land I wanted. They're like, it's going to cost you $380,000 to move power out to that land. You're not even close to the big 12 kV lines that could feed that. So now I'm thinking, okay, well, $380,000 to put power out there. And I'm like, is that me purchasing the transformers and all the other stuff I need to get that? And they're like, no, you're going to have to petition the city to do that. It's like, oh, I don't want to do that. It's going to take so much more time, and the city's not going to pay for that because they have nothing to gain out of it. Nothing at all. So I'm like, well, let's see. How much is it going to cost if I supplied everything? They're like, if you supplied everything, it would probably tag on another $500,000 to the project cost. It's like, oh my gosh. So it's like, okay, now they're up to like $1 million just to get power out to the field that I haven't purchased yet for this supposed ride that, by the way, I've already put a $7 million down payment on. So it's like, all right. So I funded the money. The power company is starting to get together stuff. The ground crew, the lawyers called me back and they said, look, we've got everything passing. Go ahead, and we got the land set aside. Move the money over for the land. Great. I purchased the land. The land is now officially mine. It's like, awesome. I have the land now officially for my ride, which is going to work out great because next thing that's coming up is the utility crews coming in. They're actually bringing poles down the street from the nearest power line, and then we have to land the transformers there. Transformers, it actually takes 5 transformers to do what we're doing, but it's a lot. Okay, so we're going to land the transformers, and then we're going to later on terminate the high voltage going into the transformer. Great. All right, now let's talk about the footing. It's like, okay, so Intamin's officially done with the design. They've moved some stuff around, very minor on design, but they're done with the design, and they have the layout finished. They have where all the footers are going to go and everything else. So now we can take that ground plan and I can give it to a contractor to come out, and they're the ones that actually have to drill into the ground, install the piers, and get everything hooked up and ready to go. So they're going to be getting the cages, they're going to be getting the concrete out there, which was another challenge because the concrete company, there's nobody local to pour that much concrete for those footers. So we had to hire a special concrete company that comes out and actually does A-B mixture on site. We basically had to put a concrete company on the land in order to put the concrete down into the piers to do this project. What a mess, absolutely. So the contractor that I hired, I said, hey, can you guys also do the steel work? And they said, yeah, we do that sort of stuff all the time. We do high-rise work and things like that. So we talked with Intamin about the sizes and shapes and pieces of everything they need. They got the crane sized out. We need an RT crane, which is a little heavier duty than most cranes, but there was no good solid ground around the land. It's just farmland. It's all dirt. So they needed a bigger crane that way is more stable so it can easily pick the parts and pieces when it gets done. You got to remember the project lead time on that was 18 months. So it's like, okay, so we still got some time to go before that's done. Now, in talking with Intamin about some of these other things, because at the very beginning it's not 100% defined, it's about 70% defined, but not 100%. So it's like, okay. So they started talking about trains. How many trains do you want? And I'm like, well, I want to run the trains. And they're like, it could run up to, we could put a umpteen amount of trains on there if you want it. And I'm thinking, it's just going to be me and my buddies running this thing. And when somebody calls up and they're like, Ryan, we want to go ride the ride, it's like, yeah, come on, let's go. So I'm like, I only need, I'm going to say 2 trains because I wanted 1 train just to be like sitting in the storage, just ready to go. I'm like, just do that. And they're like, okay. I got the ride contracted with 2 trains, and then they tried throwing another $2.5 million worth of parts in there. And I was like, I don't need all the extra parts because I'm not a park. I'm not going through the refurbishments really fast. And they're like, you have to go through the refurbishment because that's part of the contract. It's like, okay, got it. All right, so why don't you give me some of the parts and pieces of pins since I got to take the thing apart every year and NDT it anyway. That tags on another $15,000 onto the price. And then I said, let's go ahead and get both trains coming and we can build a storage shed basically to put them into on the property, and we can start getting parts and pieces here to arrive. They agreed to that, but honestly, the trains are one of the last things produced. It's typically, they're smaller, they're a little easier to put together than all the pieces of track and structure and everything else. So flash forward a handful of months, and it's starting to get exciting because they call up and they said, okay, we're actually going to start shipping track to you. We're going to start shipping columns, we're going to start shipping track. And now I'm getting bill of lading and things like that, all these invoices of all these parts and pieces that are coming here. Well, wasn't the easiest thing to do because each time one of these big trucks got off the highway and they're coming down these little farm roads that are dirt, so it's not great to start with. Now I have to have my construction company essentially on call with a crane sitting on the property the entire time. Also, during this time, I have to put up a fence all the way around the property. I said, might as well go for the full fence and, just put it all the way around the entire acreage of land that I have. So we agreed to do that. So the company put up a full fence all the way around the land. They got it done really quick. So when the trucks came in, we had to unload the track and set it down on the ground. And then we had to go over there and say, okay, we had to mark the parts and then start to place them out and about where they would go. Now, we could do some movement, but not a lot. So basically, we were putting stuff close to where it wanted to go because the construction manager at the time just said, hey, let's get the stuff close. That way we can come out in chunks. It will save you money. We can do, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 pieces of track and structure and get them all laid down and connected up and then stop while more stuff is coming in. So I was like, I like that idea. Okay. There's still stuff coming in from overseas, so it wasn't a big deal. And it was really cool to start seeing these footers and outlines and stuff actually starting to take shape to where everything was like, look, you could see it. It's like, there's the structure of the ride. There's all the stuff. At the same time, we had these huge troughs dug into the ground where all the electrical had to go in. Now, one thing I wasn't thinking of, with the freeze thawing that goes on out here in the Midwest, we had to bury this stuff really far down. Really far, I mean, the electrical had to go really far down in the ground so it didn't just lift up out of the ground when it freeze all the time. So that was a little bit more in the grand scheme of things for pricing wise, but that cable really needed to be down there, especially the high voltage coming in from the transformer to the service area where the drive was going to be set. I mean, not to mention I needed a station house that could also house trains. And I was like, well, what do I really need that for? But that's where all the control room and everything is going to as well. So I also enclosed that area. That way the trains could just sit there and I could close them off when it was all said and done. Just like, okay, they could stay warm during the winter time, run a heater out there basically, right? Okay, so all the track is getting on site now. And the construction company is out there and they're pretty much running at full tilt now. We're putting track together. It is shaping up. It is looking beautiful. The paint job looks immaculate on there. We got the trains coming in. We put the trains off to the side in the storage area. That was one of the things they're able to get up first. So now I've got tracks sitting up in the air with 2 trains sitting on it. Those are the storage areas for the thing. I did bid to have that enclosed. That's one of the things that they're going to do, but they haven't gotten to it just yet. All right, the entire time, the insurance company's knocking on my door the whole time because it's like we keep having to up the amount of insurance we have because like the insurance that Intamin needs for them to do their thing, the insurance that the contractors need, the insurance that the lawyers need, like everybody needs insurance and I have to float the bill for all of it. Luckily, I'm a big-time lotto winner at this point, so I could float the bill for that and get that done. During this time, with all the track going together for the final construction, Intamin sends over their rep. That way, the actual field installation guy can get a hold of all the parts and pieces, all the componentry, the drive systems going together, stators are being installed. I'm calling out extra contractors for electrical, extra contractors for mechanical. Everybody's coming on site for this. You never realize how many people it takes to actually put something together until you run into something like this. And I would have tried to space it out further, but the problem is that every day the rep from Intamin's on site is just burning up more money. And that guy is there to get the job done as fast as possible. That's the environment amusement parks work in, so that's what he is doing. And I can't tell him just to slow down because all it's going to do is cost more money and more money. So we put the whole thing together. We get all the stuff. We put it together, and I'm getting super excited. I'm calling up my buddies. I'm like, we're getting close to launching this thing. It's awesome. Come out. And they're coming out. So they're like, who's this guy? I'm like, well, these guys they're going to be my crew. So, and I'm going to be one of the crew too. So you're going to have to train all of us on how the maintenance and operations and everything else goes for this. They're like, okay. So they put all the stuff together. We're out there. We're starting to commission the system. We're getting things running. And I said, we're going to go with the single operator up there and the single operator in back. 2 people to dispatch the train. That's what I want, right? They're like, yep. And I'm like, I want to be able to push and hold these dispatch buttons the entire time and have the train just dispatch and then come in on the next time. And they're like, yeah, no problem. I said, I don't want them to time out. Why don't you want them to time out? So when you time out dispatch buttons, it means you push and hold them, and then after a little bit you have to release them because the commands stop working. So that's one of the things that it prevents something from being overridden. So I'm like, I don't want them to time out. I want to be able to push and hold them the entire time and advance the next training. Oh, yeah, we got you. Okay, yeah, no problem. Well, throughout the whole process, I kept checking in on that, and basically it never got in there. Every time a new train would come up, you'd have to take your hands off and dispatch it in again. So that's a little bit more gears working in my head, but I thought about it. I'm like, okay, all right, we'll get that working. Then we sidelined one train, and I'm like, let's see how we can do this. I looked into the train, and I'm looking at the unlock release mechanisms and stuff, and I'm like, okay, standard, it's 24 volts contact from the bus. It releases the actuators open up. All right, I can do this. I've got an idea about this, but okay. So we finished commissioning the ride. I have now a fully turned over copy of Maverick sitting on my own property, and it is absolutely awesome. It kicks so much butt, and it is fun to ride. It's the best thing ever. Like, it's amazing, you know? All the $32 million ish that I've spent so far to get the ride to this point, thumbs up, love it. Maybe someday I'll open it up to the public, I'm not sure. But anyways, so we get done with the process and everything's all set off and signed off. And it's like, okay, ride's installed. Sweet, I have my own roller coaster now that needs 3 people to operate. 2 people, someone's got to be able to ride it, right? So let's do that. I understand Intamin's concern. They have no fire. They don't want, if something stops, it's like if it stops out on the brake run, what are you going to do? If it stops on the lift hill, what are you going to do? If it stops out there, if something catches fire, what are you going to do? Well, here's what I'm going to do. So my first thing for operating a roller coaster by yourself, not that I would do it, but here's my thought. So in the car, there's one seat that I'm going to ride. Pick one. I don't care where it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, next to that, I'm going to make a special battery pack. I'm using lead-sealed batteries, gel batteries that can hold up to high stress and everything else, very durable, shock-resistant batteries. They go in the floor pan, and they're anchored in with big heavy-duty straps and a safety cable that goes around it just in case so they don't break loose. That comes up to essentially an operator panel that gets pinned underneath the restraints. It's got a key on it to override the restraints on it. When you twist the key, you have to twist another key, and then the restraints open. Think of it like a glorified left-right check for the cylinder, but in this case, it stays in the roller coaster the entire time. On the side of it, I have a big rotary disconnect on the side. That's for my safety, so I know like when I turn that rotary disconnect, even if I turn both keys, it won't turn on. So that is how I'm going to release the restraints, my restraint, with nobody else there. All right, the next thing is cloning the operator signals. Well, I'm good at electrical. I'll give myself that. So what I did is I picked up another PLC and I brought it downstairs and hooked it up and I programmed it. So when I'm looking for the inputs from the logic controllers for the dispatch buttons, I can take those signals basically and run a mirror image of them through that controller and have them do their own thing. So what the plan is that just like I started, I said right next to the coach in the load position, I am going to go through and I'm going to say, I'm going to press one dispatch button and maybe a second dispatch button, press them 2, go 1, 2, and then I am going to dispatch. So I said, okay, so when I go 1, 2, my processor sees that and goes 1, 2, And then the processor goes all 4 inputs, actually it'd be 6 inputs for the dispatch buttons. All of them go high for roughly 30 seconds. Goes high for 30 seconds, and then the train dispatches on its own. Now, when the next train comes in, because this would only be run with 1 train on it, when the train comes back, I interrupt the proximity sensor signal that's on the track right behind the load position. And I say, okay, I'm going to feed that to my processor as well. And I'm going to say when that goes high, it's going to automatically dispatch again in the same sequence and bring the train all the way in until it stops. At that point, the process is completely canceled, and I can, on that panel, simply hit the open restraints button and open all the restraints. Cool, I figured out the dispatching. What about faulting? Well, the ride faults, it's really simple. It simply just stays in its fault mode. It's going to come to a rest wherever it is, and it's simply going to go over there and unlock the restraints. I'm going to turn my knob on the side of the box over here and then turn the key in 2 different positions, key and key, and then open up my restraint. I can climb out. All right. Case of fire. I guess I'm just out of luck at that point. That's not good. But insurance did have to have me install a fire suppression system in the back, which is killed to the main disconnect. So, and that's sent to the local fire and rescue. Fire and rescue has actually been out to the site a bunch of times to look at, plan for, and stuff like that. As an extra precaution, I'm paying a monitoring company to monitor all that stuff. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to say that if the ride faults and goes into an e-stop condition and I don't get over to reset that e-stop within about 5 minutes, I'm going to say it's going to automatically call fire and rescue to come out. Yeah, I think that'll work. Do that, 5 minutes, automatically fire and rescue comes out. And then if that would be like if the train valleyed somewhere. So if the train valleyed and let's say it's at a high spot and I can't really get off of it because it's a 30-foot drop to the ground, well, then I would be stuck there. So fire and rescue would come out and they'd basically like, hey, I'm over here. One of the safety precautions would be to ride with a safety like a walkie-talkie or a phone anchored into the vehicle to do that. Yeah. Sounds good, huh? Now, the whole purpose of this video, the whole exercise was to say, like, would you ever, like, I've heard this so many times from people, if I had the money, if I won the lottery, I would install blank ride. And it's always something like I was just talking about, where it's always like a carbon copy, a clone of a particular ride. But then there's a lot of stuff that people don't think about, like how would you do it? It's like the first part of the video was all actually pretty cut and dry. It's going to cost you a lot of money, but you can do it. The thing about Intamin not wanting to sell it to you because like they don't want you to run the ride by yourself because that's an unsafe condition. And again, I didn't run this by Intamin. I didn't do anything like that. I just liked the manufacturer, so I used them. That is something I feel like you would get from every single manufacturer because when they go through and do the risk analysis for their equipment, all their risk analysis numbers work off of how many operators are there, how fast people can get to a situation and respond to things. So all of their risk factor numbers go out the window if you were to try to do something like run the ride by yourself. It's definitely one of those things they wouldn't allow, and if you were upfront and said that's what you want to do, I bet you most manufacturers, I'd be willing to put money on it, would not sell you the equipment. They would just be like, go talk with a different manufacturer because you're not going to use our equipment to do whatever it is you're doing. Even if it means giving up a sale, they might not want to do that. There might be some manufacturers that actually would, yeah, we'll do that. We'll help you out with that. But then you would probably need a legal team sitting there to waive 100% of the liability away from that manufacturer. There'd probably be giant legal clauses drawn up to make sure that you can't go back to them and hold them responsible in any way, shape, or form for anything that you're about to do. So I think it would be someone like what I was talking about, where you went through the whole process and then at the end you're like, okay, let's see how we could bypass the entire thing and still work it by ourselves. But it's the end of the video. It's all those bypassing steps, the single panel dispatch. How would you get out of the train? What happens if the ride faults? If you take those scenarios and apply it to your backyard roller coaster, you'd figure out real quick you either can't put in a backyard roller coaster or you're going to need a crew of people to operate it constantly. A lot of people, it's like, no problem. I have lots of friends that would come over and do this all the time. It's like, that's really cool. At the same time, it's like, wouldn't it just be fun to do by yourself? I think it would be fun to do by yourself. That's just me, though. Anyways, different video from all my other ones. I figured for Christmas, I'm like, let's do something a little fun, out of the ordinary, kind of like a story. Let's take our what if caps and put them on and say, what if we could do this? What if we could do that? Sorry, if you haven't figured it out by now, I did not actually win the lotto. I did not actually purchase a roller coaster. This was all hypothetical situation. Sorry to disappoint everybody and lie through my teeth about it. But I thought this would be a fun video. If you won the lottery and you had millions and millions and millions of dollars to purchase a roller coaster, any roller coaster from any manufacturer, just like I was talking about in this video, brand new ride, just sign the dotted line and put the money down. What would you do? Would you go for a clone of an existing ride? And when you say, nope, I want a custom layout. I want something like one of my favorite things. I've actually never been on one of these, fun fact, but a Premier Spaghetti Bowl. I love twisted track looking rides. The Smiler, like, I love rides like that, where you look at it and it's just a mess of track. It's just like, this looks like fun. Come on, let's go on that. I would take a twisted metal track like that over a big, long, fast hyper or something, like, any day. So, fun video. What's your thoughts? Let me know down in the comments. Like, subscribe, share, do all that stuff. It helps me out. I do appreciate it. Merry Christmas, and stay off the air gates. Oh, wait. If it's not Christmas time, happy whatever day of the week it is. Still stay off the air gates. Unless your ride didn't have air gates. It probably has air gates, though. Maybe mechanical gates? I'm not sure.